hello, hello. I welcome you back to Pastor B's Kitchen Table. Hello, I am Pastor Bobby D. Hamilton, and I thank you for joining me here at the kitchen table. For those of you wondering why it's called the kitchen table, is because at the kitchen table is where we settle stuff and we handle stuff. I told you before that in the family I grew up in, we discussed serious issues. They weren't discussed in the bathroom, they weren't discussed in the garage, they weren't discussed on the sofa, they were discussed at the kitchen table. So here at the kitchen table, we're going to be talking about things. We're going to be talking about issues that pertain to relationships. How do we get better with God and with one another? And how do we navigate these waters of trying to have healthiness and wholeness when it comes to our relationships? So over the past few weeks, we've been talking about things such as how do we deal with conflict, and how do we deal with communication, and then how do we deal with our purpose, and how do we deal with identity, and all those things have been coming together. But today I want to deal with something that is very, very near and dear to all of us, is that how do we deal with this thing called time? Do you know what time it is? How do we deal with the very tick-tocks of the day? It's been said before that time is something in which you really cannot hold, you cannot harness, you cannot hijack, you must live it. And of course, with time, it says that if you kill time, time never has a resurrection. And how many of us have literally killed time? So I want to talk today, but if we're really going to be on our game, we're really going to be people who fulfill our destinies and our callings, we're going to be able to navigate these things called time. How do we make the most of our time and stop wasting time? If you're honest about it, you've wasted a whole lot of time. You've wasted a whole lot of months and years and decades, and you don't know where the time went. So I want to talk today just a little bit about how we can kind of go back and become what we were created to be, to maximize our moments and our opportunities. But first, you got to be able to master time. I found it interesting that in Inc. magazine, that they were talking about some time wasters among individuals and about corporations and what things do we do. How do we lose track of time? How does time ooze out of our grasp? How do what we intended to be never come to fulfillment? What happened to our time? So I listed a few things I want to talk about today, just a few things, talk about how we often kind of waste our time. One would say we waste our time by constantly checking emails. Do you do that on your job? Do you do that at home? Are you always sending out emails and checking emails? How much time do you spend with your emails? See, we also waste a lot of time by being a perfectionist. It's the kind of person that has to be in control. Everything has to be right. Now, believe me, I'm not advocating mediocrity, but I am saying something about you got that perfectionistic spirit. The thing has to be, many times it's a camouflage for a desire to be in control. You want everyone else to be perfect, but you don't have to be perfect. That's a perfectionistic spirit. So it wastes time because you can't ever find anyone who measures up. And you're spending so much time dotting every I, crossing every T, that time has washed away. But also, what about this one? It says about saying yes to everybody and everything. Do you have a hard time saying no? Everyone that opens your door, everyone that steps into your life, your job is trying to be a people pleaser. You want to please everybody all the time, and it wastes time. Not just waste time, it has to be extremely exhausting. Are you tired today? Just trying to please your mother and your father and your children, employer, employees, in-laws, outlaws. You're trying to please everybody. And in the midst of doing all of that, you've wasted so much time and nobody ever told you thankful. See, that's really what has gotten you a goat, is no one ever told you thank you. And you're exhausted by trying to be a people pleaser. You're a chronic people pleaser. Here's another one. Online surfing. You have no boundaries. You go to one site that leads to another site. You read one article that dovetails into another article. And how much time do you spend on social media? How much time do you spend surfing internet sites? How many times must you read that story? It's the same story, just written by a different author. How many times must you find yourself caught up? How many hours per day? How many hours at night? At nighttime, you just sit there and just sift through your Facebook, and you sift through your Twitter, and you sift through Instagram. You spend so much time on social media. You have no boundaries whatsoever. Time is of an essence. You've wasted so much time reading about and glancing at what others are doing. When will you ever get around to what you're supposed to be doing? But you spend so much time with that. Here's another one. Unresolved conflicts. You're always in a mess. You're always in a fight. You always got someone who's just rubbing you wrong, or you rubbing them wrong. And you've spent so much time in conflicts. As a matter of fact, if you're honest about it, you feel comfortable in chaos. You feel comfortable in times of conflict. In fact, many of you, you're able to navigate the waters of discord better than in times of unity. You grew up in a home that was littered and peppered by fussing and fighting and slander and verbal abuse, and that's the way you are now. So you spend all this time. When will you ever just say, listen, I'm going to try to reconcile with you, but if we can't reconcile, I'm going to just move on. Maybe that could be the best thing you've heard today. You could stop wasting a lot of times if you just adopt that attitude. I'm getting ready to move on. I'm not going to sit here and go word for word with you. I'm not going to sit here and fuss and fight. I'm not going to sit here and return evil for evil with you. I'm just going to move on. You have spent so much time talking about what they did, what they said, why they said it, what did they mean by that, and now it's turning to gossip. Because you've included people who weren't even a part of the conversation, wasn't even a part of the relational rift, and you brought them in, and now they're a part of it. Because why? You spent so much time. Think about the conflict you've had, and you've had this conflict for a long time. Why do you consume so much time and so much energy? That's why your head hurts. That's why you can't sleep. That's why you take so much medication, perhaps. It's because you got this conflict going on, and you haven't known how to handle it, and yet it's been handling you. Aren't you ready to say enough is enough? You've wasted so many minutes, so many hours, so many days in dealing with this conflict situation that just won't seem to go away, and you won't go away. But also, here's another one. We find ourselves just wasting time and killing time. We find the clock on our lives is ticking because we don't really have a plan. You have not sat down and mapped out a plan for your life or for your children's life or for your marital life. Or you don't know where you're going. God has created you in his image. God has given you abilities. God has given you talent. And if you're saved, God has given you spiritual gifts. And God has a niche that's been carved out for you. And yet you can't get to it because you don't have a plan. It's amazing how you're walking in everyone else's plan and not in your plan. What's the plan for your life? Jeremiah the prophet tells us that God says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope, Jeremiah 29:11. What about you? What plan do you have for your life? What plan have you documented? What plan are you working on? Some of you have gone to class reunions and family reunions, and you sit there and watch what everyone else is doing. What's your plan? What's your business model? What's your life model? What's your ministry model? What are you doing? What are you doing with the time God has given you? You've been to everybody else's funeral but your own because God has given you time. But what's the plan? What's the plan? How old are you now? 20, 30, 40, 50? What's the plan? What are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you going? And then how do you know when you get there? Are you closer to it now than you were before? It's not too late. It's not too late. It's not too late. I'm not trying to bring condemnation upon you. I'm saying that it's not too late. But when will you get to it? What is the plan? I know what the company's plan is. I know what the government's plan is. But what is your plan? What plan has God ordained for you and you're currently walking in it? Where is your project? Where is your 5-year plan? Where is your 1-year plan? Where is your 1-day plan? What is your plan? Here's another one. Playing video games. Oh, I know there's some great video games out there. Call of Duty and Fortnite and all those kind of things. But how much time do you spend playing video games? How many games do you have? You're top of the food chain when it comes to the highest score. Great. But how much time do you spend doing that? What could that time have better been used doing than playing video games? You spend so much time being a gamer. Hey, nothing wrong with recreation, nothing wrong with a little fun, nothing wrong with a little competition. Do not get me wrong. But everything is wrong if that you spend your waking hours, your waking days, and you're consumed with sitting on a chair or a sofa with a headset on, and you're playing games. It's not real. reality. I don't care how lifelike they make it. It is not reality. And you got to step out of that which is fictitious and step into reality. You spend way too much time playing games. You're wasting time. What if you deposited that same hour, that same 3 hours, that same 5 hours into the plan you have for your life? When will you get to it? Here's another one. What about watching television? Now, who doesn't love a good television show? Who doesn't love a good series? Who doesn't love to watch a good action-packed movie where there's a great car chase, or where there's a great fight, or there's great action, where someone is traversing a great mountain and someone's overcoming seemingly like unovercomable odds? And who doesn't love that? We all love that. And yet the television, when you combine in the commercials and you combine in how the movies loop together, they tell you one, the next one comes on the heels of that, you can find yourself sitting there 4, 5, 6 hours watching Showtime or watching HBO or watching ESPN or watching the Lifetime channel. You can spend it forever, or even sitting there watching the actual gospel ministry. You can sit there for years, for days, and for hours watching that. But too much television. It doesn't allow the brain to absorb and to think, because it's doing it for you. Your sensories are just responding to stimuli that's coming from inside the boob tube. And so I want to encourage your heart today about you wasting time. You spend too many hours. Maybe you ought to take a fast from entertainment, a fast from the television. I know you got a big flat screen. I know it's 60, 70, 80, 90 inches, and you love the big screen, and you love how it looks. You got surround sound. That's great. Maybe you have actual movie theater in your home. That's great. But you can't waste all that time watching television. Here's another one. Hanging out with negative, defeated-minded people. You waste so much time because you really run with people who also waste time. The Bible says that bad company corrupts good morals. And could it be that you have not felt a sense of urgency in your life because the people who you live with and you run with and you hang with, you consult with, who consult you, they're not really going anywhere either. And so they're time wasters. They always put off for tomorrow what should have been done yesterday. And of course, today is out of the question. But what about you? What circle do you run in? What circle are you running in that's trying to accomplish, trying to fulfill, that's trying to maximize the moment, that's trying to maximize this life and the times we have? The actual sands in the hourglass of our lives is ticking away. And I know that's hard for some of you to digest right now, because you think that right now you're in the apex of your life. You think that right now you're living large, it's your best life and all that. But you have no idea how many days or how many minutes you have, and yet God is giving you these opportunities. You go to some of the finest schools. You got some of the finest families. You've had access to some of the greatest environments. And yet, what are you doing with it? And yet you're running with people who are not trying to really accomplish anything. And so there you are. We always tell our children about be careful who they run with. And yet so many times we become adults and we lose the same principle that we tried to burn into the hearts of our children about being careful who you run with. You're running with people right now who are just lost in the moment, but they have no purpose in the moment. So they go from excitement to excitement to excitement to euphoria to euphoria, but not to accomplishment, not to fulfillment, not to purpose, not to destiny, because they don't know where they're going. And guess what? You're riding shotgun with them. And so I'm trying to say today that you wasted too much time. But also, we waste time because of indecision. We just can't make up our minds. We've halted between two opinions. We can't say up, we can't say down. We can't say right, we can't say left, can't say east, can't say west. We're just indecisive. And you never want to make a decision. And you've lived a lot of your life not making decisions. You've allowed other people to make decisions for you. And you can't do that. You wasted so much time with the idea of maybe so, maybe not. The Bible calls that in the book of James being double-minded. being double-minded. In other words, you're caught between God's way and your way. You're really caught between faith and unbelief. You're really caught between the kingdom and your kingdom. And it's called being double-minded. And then you're just double-minded. You never can make a decision. You can't make a decision about anything. And if you made a decision about something and someone questions you about the decision that you made, you change your decision. Because you're always a person that's indecisive. And so when you look at the totality of your life, where you are, some of you look at me right now, you may be 40 years old, you may be 35, you may be 25, you may be 65 years old. And yet, if you look at where you are right now, there's a lot of regret and remorse about where you are because you have read other people's books and you know that should have been your book that was written. Because you've gone to other people's businesses and you know that should have been your business you stepped into. Because you see other people climb the ladder of success. And you know that you should have had a run of success in your life. You've seen God mightily use other people in a great ministry moment, in a great ministry movement. And you knew that God had called you. You knew that God had put it on your heart. You knew God had gifted you and assigned you that task. But you didn't have the faith to step out and do it. And therefore you sit there and you pout and you moan and you find reason for accusation against those that have done it because there's something inside you that you were just stuck chronically on simply wasting time. I've got some good news for you today, that today you can stop being a time waster. Today you can say, you know what, I have decided that what I am going to do, I am going to make the most of this time. You can't go back and change your yesterday. Oh, but you got a lot to say about your today and your tomorrow. And you can use it. You can use it. You have to lose it. You can use it. God has given you this moment, this breath, this life to be able to understand based on some actuarial charts from insurance industries that say that the average person lives to be somewhere between 70 or 80 years old. Matter of fact, it's believed that a woman will live to be 81, and most men may live to be at 76 years old. And so I don't know where you're in that paradigm. That's purely a range. It's just what they use to actually assign value to life insurance policies, to customers and things like that. But for you, you don't know how old you are. You could be older than you think you are because you don't know how many days you have remaining, just like you. So we could look young or we could be old because we don't know if we have 5 more days, 5 more years, 50 more years. We don't know. Only God knows that. So what can we control? What can we do? What can we do about this thing wasted called time? How could we stop just lying and ruminating in just restlessness because we didn't get to what God called us to do? How can we do it? In the Bible, in the book of Psalms, Psalm chapter 90, Moses, this great reluctant liberator, God raises up Moses, and Moses comes and instructs the people about the very thing I'm telling you about time, about stop being a time waster. He's telling them about how to move beyond where they are. And the backdrop of this is some people who have not moved very well. In fact, they were assigned, their parents were assigned to 40 years of walking in the wilderness. There were 40 years of funerals because they disobeyed God's voice. And so Moses now in Psalm 90, he wants to write and tell them how they should live their lives from a perspective of not wasting time, from a perspective of how to move forward. And he says in Psalm 90 verse 12, he says, Lord, I want you to do something for us. I want you to teach us to number our days that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. He's saying, God, we need help. We need you to show us how to number our days, how to make the most of our moments, how to maximize our moments, how to squeeze everything out of our moments for your honor and for your glory. He says, teach us. He says, teach us because we don't know on our own. Teach us, look what the text says, how to number our days, not our years. We number our years. We have birthdays. We have anniversaries, celebrating years. But he says, no, number our days. It means that the days are important. That every day, every day that you get up, every waking day there's breath in your body. Every waking day that you have blood flowing through your veins. Every waking day that you can see the sunrise or the sunset. Every day you can that you ought to decide that this day is going to be a productive day. This day I'm going to be about my Father's business. This is going to be the day that I've decided that I'm going to do what God has assigned for me to do. No one achieves success in a hurry. It always takes sacrifice. It takes time. It takes discipline. But it's a one-day, one-step proposition. That's kind of what Jesus said in Matthew 6 when he teaches his disciples how to pray. And he says, say this, and Lord, give us today our daily bread. It means by one day at a time. You must learn to live one day at a time. I know some of you, you have 5-year plans. You have 10-year plans. You got a 20-year plan. But I want to know what you're planning for today. What are you doing today? When you're hearing my voice today, by this time of day, you've already consumed part of your day. Was that a productive consumption, or was that a wasteful consumption? What have you done? Lord, teach us to number our day. Teach us, Lord, how to take every day and wring out of it all that it has to offer. So whatever you're calling it, you may be a teacher, you may be a preacher, you may be a servant, you may be an usher, you may be someone who's an airplane pilot, you may be someone who drives a great train, or you may be someone who's a homemaker or a caretaker, you may be someone who's an architect, you may be an engineer, you may be someone who's a physician, you may be an RN, you may be a policeman, a fireman, who knows what you are, but I'm saying whatever it is, then your responsibility is that day to do what you can while you can. Oh, I need to say that again. Do what you can while you can. Say, Lord, teach us to number our day, that we can present to you a heart of wisdom, to show that we're wise, not foolish. The Bible says, back in Ephesians chapter 4, that in fact we must be a people who understand the days we live in are evil. Therefore, we must be people who live wisely. Living wisely means being able to take what God has said and what God wants and apply it in modern day situation. Wisdom does not come simply because you are old, because you can be old and be an old fool. No. Wisdom comes about when I understand what God is saying, and I want to apply it to my situation in life, my family in life, my issues in life. You got to be wise. Say, Lord, teach us, because we do not know. Teach us how to number our day. Teach us that every day to make the most of it. And teach us also, God, to be a people who understand that this is for you. It's not for me. Which implies that a successful life is not simply about a life that ends right here. If all that you have done and all that you have achieved gets locked up in a vault, in a box when you die, and is dropped down to the earth, that's not a successful life. A successful life is living beyond. Someone said it best, that the test of greatness is not simply how you live, but what you leave. So what are you going to leave? Will you leave a legacy for God? Will you live a legacy of accomplishment? Will you live a legacy of a life spent for the will and the calling of God? What will you leave? You can't just leave houses and cars and dogs and cats and condos. No, you must leave something that's stamped with and marked with eternity, that has eternal value on it. The souls of men, soul saving. People have come to Jesus Christ and have grown in Jesus Christ. People who have been discipled in Christ and kingdom endeavor. You invested your money in the work of God, in the will of God, in the way of God, in the people of God. Something lies beyond you. You must start thinking with a mind set towards eternity, towards just not simply here and now. You can't kill that which is born of God. Jesus Christ was resurrected from the dead. You can't kill that which is birth of God. And what you're living in today, you ought to be thinking about what's going to outlive you. What's going to be a testimony to the greatness of what God did in you and through you. Oh, I want to encourage you today that perhaps before you heard this, you may have been a time waster. And as I started this earlier, you were still a time waster. And you were an angry time waster because I was saying about how you're wasting time. But there's good news. There's grace in the house. And the grace in the house that God has given you one more chance. He's given you this day. You can't undo what's done. Oh, but you got a big say-so on what's to come. Are you ready? Are you ready this day to say, today I'm going to live on purpose. Today I'm going to live for the glory of God. Today I'm going to live my life in such a way that that thing that God has burdened my heart about, has called me to do and to be. I'm going to start this day. This day I'm going to start being about my Father's business. I tell you, he'll bless you, and he'll bless you real good. Lord bless you, Lord keep you, and I'll see you next week right here at Pastor B's Kitchen Table.